The massive research ship Harmony's Edge moved slowly through the empty space where Earth's solar system once existed. Dr. Calvorth pressed his crystalline hand against the viewing window, watching chunks of frozen rock drift past. His multiple eyes tracked each piece of debris with scientific interest. "Another 500 cycles of searching," he said to his assistant, Nimtal. "And still, we find only bones and metal scraps." Nimtal nodded, her smaller crystalline body glowing softly in the dim light. "The human species remains a mystery, Doctor. All we have are military records from the Coalition archives." Dr. Calvorth turned away from the window. His tall frame cast long shadows across the research lab. The Kethmoran scientist had spent most of his life studying extinct species, but humans fascinated him more than any other. They had spread across dozens of worlds before the Coalition stopped them. Yet so little was known about their biology. "The records say they were violent," Dr. Calvorth said, walking to his workstation. "Dangerous to galactic peace, but I want to understand what made them so adaptable." The ship's communication system buzzed. "Dr. Calvorth, to the lower decks," came the voice of Nimtal's research team. "We found something." Both scientists moved quickly through the corridors of their ship. The Harmony's Edge was built for research, not speed, but it had the best scientific equipment in the Coalition. They had been searching through the ruins of human space stations for months. In the lower deck, junior researcher Fim Call waited beside a large metal object. It was clearly human technology, rough, heavy, and built to last. Unlike Kethmoran devices, which were elegant and light, this looked like it could survive anything. "We pulled this from a destroyed station," Fimcall explained. "The power source is still active after 500 years. Human engineering was different from ours." Dr. Calvorth examined the object. It was some kind of pod with a small window at the top. Frost covered most of its surface, but inside, he could see something that made his heart stop beating. "A human, a real living human. By the eternal light," he whispered. "Nimtal, check the readings. Is it alive?" Nimtal connected her scanning device to the pod. Her glow brightened with excitement. "Yes, Doctor. The biological functions are active but slowed. This human is in some kind of sleep state." Dr. Calvorth could hardly believe it. They had found bones, weapons, and technology, but never a living specimen. This was the discovery of a lifetime. "Prepare the revival chamber," he ordered. "Alert the entire research team. Today we will meet our first human." Security Chief Vordrex arrived within minutes. Unlike the other Kethmorans, his crystalline body was darker, more battle-scarred. He had served in the Coalition military before joining the research ship. "Doctor, I must advise against this," Vordrex said, his voice low and serious. "The military records are clear. Humans are unpredictable and violent. Even one could be dangerous." Dr. Calvorth waved away his concerns. "This human has been frozen for centuries, Vordrex. It will be weak, confused, and alone. What possible threat could it pose to our entire ship?" "The records speak of human soldiers who fought until their bodies gave out," Vordrex continued. "They had no fear of death, no concept of surrender. Those are just stories from the war," Nimtal added. "Probably exaggerated. Look at this specimen. It appears to be a standard biological form. Primitive, really." Vordrex examined the human through the pod's window. The creature looked small compared to a Kethmoran. Its body was compact with thick bones and dense muscle, not at all like the elegant Kethmoran form. "I still recommend caution," he said finally. Dr. Calvorth had already made up his mind. "We will take every precaution. But this is too important to miss. Move the pod to Medical Bay 3. I want full monitoring during the revival process." The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. The human pod was moved to the medical bay and connected to the ship's life support systems. Dr. Calvorth and his team checked every reading twice. "The human appears to be male," Nimtal reported. "Age approximately 30 of their years. Physical condition is excellent, considering the time in stasis. Any signs of disease or genetic damage?" Dr. Calvorth asked. "None. In fact, this specimen shows remarkable cellular integrity. Human biology seems more resistant to time than we expected." As the revival process began, the human's body temperature started to rise. Ice crystals on the pod melted away. Through the now clear window, they could see the human's face clearly for the first time. He looked peaceful, almost innocent. His features were softer than the harsh descriptions in military records. This was just a person, Dr. Kalevorth told himself, not the monster the old stories made humans out to be. Heart rate increasing, Fimcol announced. Brain activity rising. The revival process is working. Dr. Kalevorth felt excitement build in his chest. After centuries of studying dead civilizations, he was about to meet a living member of the most mysterious species in galactic history. Begin the final phase, he ordered. The pod's lid opened with a soft hiss. Warm air rushed in, carrying the strange scent of human biology. The research team held their breath as the human's eyes began to flutter open. Park Jiwoo woke up slowly, his mind climbing out of the deep cold that had held him for so long. The last thing he remembered was the emergency alarm on the station, the order to enter the pods, and the promise that someone would wake them when it was safe. His eyes opened fully, and he saw faces looking down at him. But they were not human faces. Tall crystalline beings surrounded his pod. Their bodies glowed with internal light and they had too many eyes. For a moment, Jiwoo wondered if he was still dreaming. "Greetings," one of them said, its voice strange but understandable. "I am Dr. Kalevorth, you are safe." Jiwoo tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. One of the beings offered him water, which he accepted gratefully. After a few sips, he found his voice. Where am I?" he asked. "You are aboard our research vessel," Dr. Kalevorth explained gently. "We found you in the ruins of your solar system. You have been in stasis for over 500 years. The words hit Jiwoo like a physical blow. 500 years? What happened to Earth? To the colonies? Dr. Kalevorth exchanged glances with his team. "I am sorry to tell you this, but your species is extinct. You appear to be the last human in the galaxy." Jiwoo stared at the ceiling of the medical bay, processing this information. Everyone he had ever known was dead. His family, his friends, his entire civilization, gone. But as the shock wore off, something else began to build inside him. These aliens seemed kind enough, but they had found him in the ruins of his home system. And they spoke about his species like it was just another research project. "How did it happen?" he asked quietly. Dr. Kalevorth hesitated. "There was a war. Your people were expanding very rapidly. The Coalition decided that humans posed a threat to galactic stability. The Coalition decided," Jiwoo repeated slowly. "Yes, it was necessary for peace. But now you can help us understand your species. You are invaluable to science." Jiwoo nodded and closed his eyes. To the aliens, he looked like he was processing grief. They could not see the cold calculation behind his closed eyelids. Park Jiwoo had been a soldier before he became an engineer, and he had just learned that these creatures had murdered his entire species for the crime of being successful. They thought he was the last human alive. They had no idea how wrong they were. Jiwoo spent his first day on the alien ship answering questions. Dr. Kalevorth and his team were excited to learn everything about human biology and culture. They treated him like a rare museum piece, poking and scanning with their strange devices. "Your bone density is remarkable," Dr. Kalevorth said, studying the readings. "Much higher than any species we know. And your muscle fibers are incredibly dense." Jiwoo sat on the examination table, wearing simple clothes the aliens had provided. He answered their questions politely while studying everything around him. The ship's design, the technology, the way these creatures moved and behaved. "In my species, we call this primitive construction," Nimtal added, not meaning to be rude. "Your bodies seem designed for a harsh world." Earth was not an easy place to live, Jiwoo agreed. He did not mention that humans had also lived on dozens of other worlds, many of them much harsher than Earth. Dr. Kalevorth made notes on his crystalline tablet. "Tell me about human society. The old records mention that you had many conflicts with each other." Jiwoo thought carefully before answering. "We had disagreements sometimes, but we always found ways to work together when it mattered." "The Coalition records suggest your species was very violent," Fimcol said. "Is this true?" "We fought when we had to," Jiwoo said simply. "Usually to protect something important." The aliens looked at each other. This did not match the stories they had heard. The humans seemed calm and reasonable. Perhaps the military records had been exaggerated. Over the next few days, Jiwoo learned more about his captors. The Kethmaran Coalition controlled most of the galaxy now. They had eliminated warfare between species and created a peaceful society. They were proud of their achievement. "War has been extinct for over 300 years, Dr. Kalevorth explained. The Coalition maintains peace through careful management. What happens if someone breaks the peace?" Jiwoo asked. Our automated systems handle small problems. For larger threats, the Coalition Council makes decisions, like they did with your species. Jiwoo nodded quietly. The aliens did not seem to realize what they had just told him. They had no military, no warriors, no one trained for real conflict. They had let machines handle violence for so long that they had forgotten what it looked like. Dr. Kaelvorth, Jiwoo said during one of their sessions. Can I ask you something? Of course, and when your people decided to eliminate humanity, did anyone speak for us? Did anyone try to find another solution? The alien scientist looked uncomfortable. The decision was made by experts. Humans were expanding too quickly, taking resources that other species needed. Your people refused to accept limits, so you killed all of us. It was not personal, Dr. Kaelvorth said quickly. It was a logical decision for the greater good. Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was still calm. I understand. You were just following orders. Dr. Kaelvorth seemed relieved that the human was taking it so well. He did not notice the way Jiwoo's hands had tightened into fists. That evening, Jiwoo was alone in his room. The aliens had given him a small space near the medical bay. They thought he was too weak and traumatized to cause problems. They were very wrong. Jiwoo had spent years in special forces before becoming an engineer. He knew how to read people, how to spot weaknesses, and how to plan operations. The aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. First, he studied the ship's layout. The corridors were wide and well lit, designed for beings who had never needed to hide or move quietly. There were no security cameras in most areas, and the few guards he had seen carried nothing that looked like weapons. Second, he observed the aliens themselves. They were tall and graceful, but their crystalline bodies looked fragile. They moved carefully, like creatures who had never had to worry about physical harm. Their technology did everything for them. Third, he listened to their conversations. They talked freely around him, assuming he was just a harmless survivor. He learned about their ship's systems, their communication networks, and their complete lack of military preparation. On his fourth day aboard the ship, Jiwoo made his decision. During his morning examination, Dr. Kaelvorth was alone with him in the medical bay. The alien was focused on his readings, not paying attention to his subject. Doctor, Jiwoo said quietly, I have a question about the Coalition decision. What is it? Dr. Kaelvorth asked, not looking up from his tablet. When you eliminated my species, did you make sure you got all of us? Something in Jiwoo's tone made the alien look up. The human was sitting very still on the examination table, but there was something different in his eyes. What do you mean? I mean, did you check every world? Every ship? Every hidden colony and secret base? Dr. Kaelvorth felt a chill run through his crystalline body. The Coalition was very thorough. All human worlds were identified and pacified. All the ones you knew about, Jiwoo said. His voice was still calm, but there was ice in it now. The alien began to back toward the door, but Jiwoo moved faster than anything Dr. Kaelvorth had ever seen. In one smooth motion, the human was off the table and blocking the exit. You see, Doctor, humans have a saying. Never put all your eggs in one basket. We learned early that the galaxy was a dangerous place. I don't understand. Jiwoo smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. We always kept backup plans. Hidden colonies, secret bases, ships that went dark when things got dangerous. You killed the humans you could find, but you missed the ones we didn't want you to find. Dr. Kaelvorth tried to activate his emergency communicator, but Jiwoo caught his wrist. The human's grip was like a steel trap, and the alien heard his own bones crack under the pressure. Please, Dr. Kaelvorth gasped. We saved you. We brought you back to life. You brought me back to study me, Jiwoo corrected, like a lab rat. And now you're going to help me contact my people. Your people are dead. The ones you found are dead. The ones you missed have been waiting 500 years to find out what happened to Earth. Alarms suddenly filled the ship as Dr. Kaelvorth's medical sensors detected his distress. Security Chief Vordrex and his team would arrive soon. Jiwoo looked around the medical bay and spotted what he needed. The examination equipment included several sharp instruments and some basic tools. Not weapons, but they would do. Here's what's going to happen, Doctor, Jiwoo said, positioning himself behind the alien and holding one of the instruments to his neck. You're going to take me to your communication center, and you're going to help me send a message. What message? A wake-up call. The medical bay doors opened and Vordrex entered with 3 security officers. They stopped when they saw the human holding their chief scientist hostage. "Release Dr. Kalevorth immediately," Vordrex ordered. Unlike the others, he carried what looked like a weapon, some kind of energy projector. "I don't think so," Jiwoo replied. "Your doctor and I are going to take a little walk. Anyone who tries to stop us will watch him die first." "You are surrounded," Vordrex said. "There is nowhere to run on this ship." "I don't need to run. I just need to reach your communications array." Vordrex studied the human carefully. This was not the confused, helpless creature they had revived. This was something else entirely. Something dangerous. "What do you want with our communications?" Jiwoo's smile widened. "I want to let my people know that their big brother is awake, and that we've found the ones who killed our family." For the first time in his long life, Security Chief Vordrex felt afraid. Not of one human, but of what that human might represent. The old military records had been right after all. Humans were not just another species. They were something much more dangerous, and now one of them was loose on their ship. "Stand aside," Jiwoo said calmly. "We have a message to send." Jiwoo forced Dr. Kalevorth through the ship's corridors at blade point. The other aliens pressed against the walls as they passed, their multiple eyes wide with fear. None of them had ever seen violence this close. Security Chief Vordrex followed at a distance with his team. He spoke quietly into his communicator, coordinating with the ship's automated systems. Every door they approached was sealed, but Jiwoo seemed to know exactly what to do. "Doctor," Jiwoo said calmly, "please tell your friend to open the next door, or I'll start breaking your limbs one at a time." Dr. Kalevorth's crystalline body was already cracked where Jiwoo had grabbed him. The human's strength was incredible. What seemed like a gentle grip to Jiwoo was crushing force to the alien. "Open it," Dr. Kalevorth gasped. "Please, just open it." Vordrex signaled and the door slid open. They continued toward the ship's command center where the main communication array was located. "I don't understand," Dr. Kalevorth said as they walked. "We treated you well. We saved your life. You kept me alive to study me," Jiwoo replied. "There's a difference. And you told me my entire species was murdered for the crime of being successful. It wasn't murder. It was a necessary decision for galactic peace." Jiwoo stopped walking. "Doctor, let me explain something about humans. We don't accept that kind of decision. Ever." They reached the command center, a large room filled with crystalline control panels and holographic displays. Several Kethmaran officers worked at stations around the room. They all froze when they saw the human enter with their chief scientist as a hostage. "Everyone out," Jiwoo ordered. "Except the communications officer." The aliens looked to their security chief, who nodded reluctantly. The command center cleared except for one nervous Kethmaran at the main communication console. "What is your name?" Jiwoo asked the remaining alien. "Tekvar," the communications officer replied, his voice shaking. "Tekvar, I need you to access your long-range communications array." "Can you do that?" "Yes, but ship protocols require authorization from—" Jiwoo tightened his grip on Dr. Kalevorth, producing a pained sound from the alien scientist. "The doctor authorizes it." "Don't you, Doctor?" "Do what he says," Dr. Kalevorth whispered. Tekvar's hands moved over his controls. The main display showed the communication array powering up. "The system is ready. What do you want to transmit?" "A very specific signal," Jiwoo said. He recited a long series of numbers and code sequences from memory. "Broadcast that on all frequencies, maximum power, in all directions." "That's just random numbers," Tekvar said. Confused. "Trust me, it's not random." As the signal went out, Jiwoo moved to one of the other control stations. His hands moved over the alien controls with surprising skill. "How do you know our systems?" Dr. Kalevorth asked weakly. "I spent 3 days watching your people work," Jiwoo replied. "Humans are very good at learning new things quickly. It's one of the reasons you were afraid of us." On the display, Jiwoo pulled up the ship's database and began searching through coalition records. What he found made his jaw clench with anger. The files showed everything. The decision to eliminate humanity had been made by a council of alien leaders who had never met a human. They had studied reports and data, then voted to destroy an entire species like they were discussing a budget change. Worse, the files showed that humans had tried to negotiate. Human ambassadors had offered to accept limits on expansion, to work within coalition guidelines. The offers had been rejected. You didn't just kill us, Jiwoo said, his voice deadly quiet. You rejected every attempt at peace we made. The council believed humans could not be trusted to keep agreements. Dr. Kaelvorth said, so you decided to kill us all instead. It was the logical choice. Jiwoo stared at the alien for a long moment. Doctor, I'm going to show you what humans consider logical. More alarms began sounding throughout the ship. On the communication display, responses started coming in. Not from coalition sources, but from deep space. Signals that had been silent for 5 centuries were suddenly active. What is happening? Vordrex demanded from the doorway. Jiwoo smiled coldly. I just sent a wake-up call to every hidden human installation in the galaxy. For 500 years they've been waiting for word from Earth. Now they know what happened. The responses kept coming. Dozens of signals, then hundreds. Each one represented a human colony, base or ship that the coalition had never found. Impossible, Dr. Kaelvorth breathed. The coalition was thorough. We found all human settlements. You found the ones we wanted you to find, Jiwoo corrected. The visible colonies, the obvious expansion. You never found the hidden ones. On the display, a tactical map of the galaxy began to light up with human positions. They were everywhere, in asteroid belts, around dead stars, in the empty spaces between systems that no one else wanted. You see, Doctor, humans learned early that the galaxy was not a safe place, so we developed something called the Insurance Protocol. For every visible colony, there were 3 hidden ones. For every ship you saw, 5 more were cloaked or hiding in deep space. The communication system started receiving new signals. These were not just acknowledgments, but status reports. Human forces were moving, coming out of hiding after centuries of waiting. The protocol was simple, Jiwoo continued. If Earth ever went silent, if the main colonies were ever attacked, the hidden settlements would activate. They would find out what happened and they would respond appropriately. Dr. Kaelvorth stared at the growing display of human positions. How many of you are there? More than you killed. A lot more. Security Chief Vordrex studied the tactical display with growing horror. The human positions formed a pattern around coalition space. They had been surrounded for centuries without knowing it. What do you want? He asked. Jiwoo looked at him with cold eyes. Justice. We can negotiate, Dr. Kaelvorth said desperately. The Coalition Council will listen to the same council that decided to murder my entire species? Jiwoo interrupted. I don't think so. New signals were coming in now. These were different. Military transmissions using codes that made the ship's translation system struggle. My people are asking for orders, Jiwoo said, reading the displays. They want to know if this should be a rescue operation or something else. He moved back to the communication console, pushing Tekvar aside. His fingers moved over the controls as he composed a response. What are you telling them? Vordrex asked. Jiwoo finished his message and sent it. On the tactical display, the human signals began to change color from blue to red. Ships started moving toward Coalition territory. I'm telling them that the Kethmoran Coalition murdered our homeworld and every colony they could find. I'm telling them that genocide requires a response. Please, Dr. Kaelvorth begged. We can find a peaceful solution. Jiwoo released the alien scientist, who collapsed to the floor. Without his hostage, the human was now surrounded by alien security, but he did not seem concerned. Doctor, your people had 500 years to find a peaceful solution. You chose murder instead. Now you get to see what humans do to species that try to make us extinct. The tactical display showed human fleets emerging from hiding places all over the galaxy. Ships that had been dark for centuries were coming online. Weapons that had been mothballed were being activated. You wanted to know what made humans dangerous, Jiwoo said, addressing everyone in the command center. You're about to find out. Security Chief Vordrex raised his weapon, pointing it at the human. I should kill you now. Go ahead, Jiwoo said calmly. It won't stop anything. My people know where I am, and they know what happened to me. Killing me will just make them angrier. Vordrex hesitated. The human showed no fear, no concern for his own safety. This was exactly what the old military records had described. A human who cared more about his mission than his own life. Besides, Jiwoo added, you're going to need me alive if you want any chance of surviving what's coming. The alien lowered his weapon. What do you mean? Jiwoo gestured at the tactical display, where more human forces appeared every minute. I'm the only one who can call them off, and right now I'm not feeling very merciful. The command center fell silent except for the sound of incoming signals. The Coalition had awakened humanity's wrath, and now they were going to face the consequences of their choices. The war they thought they had ended 5 centuries ago was about to begin again. And this time, humanity was not going to play by anyone else's rules. 3 days after Jiwoo sent his signal, the galaxy began to change. The Coalition's peaceful existence was shattered as human fleets emerged from the dark spaces where they had hidden for centuries. Admiral Kim Dae-hyun received the activation codes while his fleet was stationed in the Void Nebula, a dead region of space that no other species bothered to explore. His ships had been waiting there for 500 years, maintained by automated systems and a crew that lived in rotating shifts of cryosleep. All ships, this is Admiral Kim, he broadcast to his fleet of 300 vessels. The insurance protocol is now active. Earth has fallen. Prepare for combat operations. His ships had been built for war, not exploration. Unlike the elegant vessels the Coalition used, these were heavy, angular, and covered in armor and weapons. They had been designed by humans who knew that the galaxy was not a friendly place. Captain Lee Soman commanded the stealth ship Ghostwalker in the Kepler Outer System. Her vessel was one of 50 advanced reconnaissance ships that had been watching Coalition movements for centuries, undetected and forgotten. "Copy that, Admiral," she responded to the fleet-wide transmission. "My scouts report Coalition forces are completely unprepared. They haven't seen military action in over 300 years. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place. Human commanders who had been born in exile, raised on stories of Earth and trained for a war they hoped would never come, were finally receiving their orders. The Coalition leadership was in chaos. Emergency sessions were called as reports came in from across their territory. Ships were appearing on sensors, moving in formations that their computers could not identify. Chancellor Vec Thara, the highest leader of the Coalition Council, stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. "How many human installations were there?" "We are still counting," his military advisor replied. "Current estimates suggest over 2,000 hidden bases, colonies, and ship formations. That's impossible. Our records show we eliminated all human presence in Coalition space. Apparently, we were wrong." On the research vessel Harmony's Edge, Dr. Cal Vorth watched the same displays, with growing terror. Jiwoo sat calmly nearby, no longer restrained. There was no point in trying to hold him prisoner when his forces surrounded the ship. "How did you hide so many people?" Dr. Cal Vorth asked. "Humans are good at surviving," Jiwoo replied. "When we first left Earth, we knew we might run into hostile aliens, so we prepared for it. The Coalition offered peaceful contact. We tried to establish trade relationships." Jiwoo looked at him with cold eyes. "And when we became too successful, you decided to kill us all. That's not peace, Doctor. That's temporary convenience." The communication system activated, showing the face of a human woman in military uniform. "Park Jiwoo, this is Admiral Lee Moran of the Hidden Fleet. We've established contact with all protocol installations. Awaiting your orders." Jiwoo stood up and moved to the communication console. "Admiral Lee, good to see you. What's our current strength?" 2 million personnel across 800 ships and 400 installations. The Outer Ring colonies are fully operational. The Deep Space Monitoring Network is online. All weapon systems are active. Dr. Kelvorth felt his crystalline body go cold. 2 million humans. The Coalition had thought they killed the entire species, but they had only eliminated about half of the human population. "Casualties from the Coalition attack?" Jiwoo asked. "Approximately 1.8 million humans killed in the main colonies and Earth system. The hidden populations remained undetected and safe." Jiwoo was quiet for a moment, processing the full scale of what the Coalition had done. Nearly 2 million of his people murdered for the crime of being successful. "Admiral, transmit the evidence files to all human commands. I want everyone to see what the Coalition did to our families." "Already done." The response has been significant. On the tactical display, human ship formations began moving toward Coalition territory. Their movements were coordinated and precise, showing military discipline that had been maintained for 5 centuries. Chancellor Vec Thara tried to establish direct communication with the human forces. "This is Chancellor Vec Thara of the Coalition Council. We request immediate talks to resolve the situation peacefully." The response came from Admiral Kim Dae-hyun. His face appeared on screens across Coalition space, showing a middle-aged human with steel-gray hair and unforgiving eyes. "Chancellor Vec Thara, I am Admiral Kim Dae-hyun of the Human Defense Force. You murdered our homeworld and killed nearly 2 million of our people. There will be no peace talks. The action against humanity was taken for galactic stability. Surely we can find a diplomatic solution. You had 500 years to find a diplomatic solution. You chose genocide instead. Now you face the consequences. The first battles began at the edge of Coalition space. Automated defense platforms designed to handle pirates and minor threats faced human warships built for real combat. The results were swift and brutal. Captain Lee Soman's scouts provided real-time intelligence as human forces dismantled Coalition defenses. Target their communication hubs first, she advised. Cut their coordination before they can organize a response. The Coalition had forgotten how to fight a real war. Their elegant ships were fast and efficient, but they were built for peaceful missions. Human vessels were slower but heavily armored, designed to take damage and keep fighting. Their weapons are more advanced than ours, reported Captain Han Jisoo from the front lines, but they don't know how to use them in combat. They're fighting like this is a training exercise. Dr. Kaelvorth watched the battle reports with growing horror. Coalition forces were being destroyed wherever they encountered human ships. The technological advantage meant nothing without the will and knowledge to use it effectively. Your people are slaughtering ours, he said to Jiwoo. Your people slaughtered mine first, Jiwoo replied calmly. The difference is we're fighting military targets. You killed civilians, children, entire families. Please, there must be something we can do to stop this. Jiwoo considered the question. Around him, the research ship's crew waited anxiously for his answer. There is, he said finally. Complete surrender. Immediate withdrawal from all contested systems. Full reparations for the genocide you committed, and prosecution of everyone involved in the decision to eliminate humanity. The Coalition Council will never agree to those terms. Then they can explain their decision to my admiral. More reports came in as human forces advanced deeper into Coalition territory. Planets that had never seen war were suddenly faced with human fleets demanding unconditional surrender. Chancellor Vec Thara made a desperate broadcast to all Coalition worlds. Citizens of the Coalition, we face an unprecedented crisis. The humans we believed extinct have returned in force. All military reserves are being activated. This is not a drill. But the Coalition had no military reserves. They had eliminated their warrior classes centuries ago, believing that automated systems and careful diplomacy were sufficient for galactic peace. Admiral Kim Dae-hyun responded with his own broadcast. People of the Coalition, your leaders committed genocide against the human species. They murdered nearly 2 million innocent people, including children and families. We are here to ensure this never happens again. We offer safe passage to any Coalition citizen who wishes to leave contested systems. We do not make war on innocents, but those responsible for the crimes against humanity will face justice. The message was clear. Humans were not interested in conquest or revenge against ordinary Coalition citizens. They wanted the leaders who had ordered their extinction. Dr. Kaelvorth looked at Jiwoo with new understanding. This isn't about territory or resources. It's about justice. Finally, you're beginning to understand, Jiwoo replied. Humans don't fight for conquest. We fight to protect our people and punish those who harm us. Your leaders decided we were a threat that needed to be eliminated. Now they're going to learn what an actual threat looks like. The tactical display showed human forces closing in on the Coalition's core worlds. Ships that had hidden in the dark for 5 centuries were finally coming home, carrying the anger and determination of a species that refused to accept extinction. The galaxy was about to learn what humans really were, not the primitive, violent species the Coalition had imagined, but something far more dangerous, a people who never forgot, never forgave, and never stopped fighting for their family. The war was just beginning, and humanity had 500 years of anger to release. 1 month after the Awakening, the Coalition's perfect peace was in ruins. Human fleets had captured or destroyed half of the Coalition's military installations, and their advanced forces were approaching the core worlds. Dr. Kaelvorth stood in the command center of the Harmony's Edge, watching the tactical displays with fascination and terror. As a scientist, he could not help but study what was happening. As a member of the Coalition, he feared for his entire civilization. I don't understand how you're winning, he said to Jiwoo. Our technology is more advanced. Our ships are faster and more efficient. Jiwoo looked up from the communication console where he was coordinating with human forces. Doctor, you're making the same mistake your leaders made 500 years ago. You think technology wins wars, doesn't it? Technology helps. But wars are won by people who understand combat, who can adapt to changing situations and who never give up. Your people forgot how to fight. Mine never stopped training for it. On the main display, Admiral Kim Dae-hyun was briefing his commanders. The human fleets had evolved their tactics with each battle, learning from every engagement. Meanwhile, coalition forces kept making the same mistakes over and over. Coalition Defense Fleet 77 has been neutralized, reported Captain Lee Salmon from her scout ship. They tried the same frontal assault pattern we've seen 12 times already. No adaptation to our countermeasures. Admiral Kim nodded. Advance to the next system. Remember, we want surrenders, not casualties. Focus on command ships and communication hubs. This was what terrified Dr. Kaelvorth the most. The humans were not fighting like the savage barbarians described in coalition records. They were precise, disciplined, and showed mercy to those who surrendered. They fought like professional soldiers, not bloodthirsty monsters. Your people are not what we expected, he admitted to Jiwoo. What did you expect? The records described humans as violent, unpredictable, prone to aggression and cruelty. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. Doctor, do you know what humans call the period after you eliminated us? What? The mourning. 500 years of grief and anger, but also 500 years of growth. We used that time to become better than we were. Better how? We learned discipline. We learned to focus our anger on those who deserved it. We learned to protect the innocent even when they belonged to our enemies. As if to prove his point, a new report came in from the front lines. Coalition Civilian Transport 93 had suffered engine failure in a combat zone. Human forces had immediately stopped their attack to provide rescue assistance, evacuating 3,000 coalition citizens to safety. You saved our people, Dr. Kaelvorth said in amazement. We save everyone we can, Jiwoo replied. We fight governments, not civilians. Chancellor Vecthara had retreated to the coalition's capital world of Harmony Prime, where the few remaining military forces were making their final stand. He broadcast a desperate message to the approaching human fleets. Admiral Kim, this is Chancellor Vecthara. I request a meeting to discuss terms for ending this conflict. The reply came within hours. Chancellor, we have already stated our terms. Complete surrender, withdrawal from contested systems, reparations for genocide, prosecution of those responsible. The Coalition Council cannot accept those terms. We are prepared to negotiate a more reasonable agreement. Admiral Kim's response was cold and final. There is nothing to negotiate. You committed genocide. These are the consequences. The final battle for Harmony Prime began 3 days later. Human fleets surrounded the planet while coalition forces prepared for a desperate last stand. But instead of immediately attacking, Admiral Kim made one final offer. People of Harmony Prime, this is Admiral Kim Dae-hyun. We do not wish to harm innocent civilians. All non-military personnel may evacuate safely. We will provide transport ships and safe passage to any neutral world you choose. Millions of coalition citizens took the offer, streaming off the planet in massive evacuation fleets. Human ships escorted them to safety, providing food, medical care, and protection during the journey. Dr. Kaelvorth watched the evacuation from the Harmony's edge, which was now serving as a coordination center for the human forces. You're really going to let them all leave? Of course, Jiwoo said. They didn't commit the crimes. Why should they suffer for their leaders' mistakes? But they supported the coalition system that eliminated your people. Most of them probably never knew what was really done in their name. Leaders lie, Doctor. That's why they need to be held accountable. When the evacuation was complete, only military forces and government officials remained on Harmony Prime. The final assault lasted 6 hours. Coalition defenses, designed to repel pirates and minor threats, crumbled before human forces that had been planning this moment for centuries. Chancellor Vecthara was captured in his command bunker, along with the surviving members of the Coalition Council. They were brought aboard Admiral Kim's flagship, where they faced the humans they had tried to exterminate. I am Admiral Kim Dae-hyun, the human commander said to the assembled coalition leaders. 500 years ago, your predecessors ordered the systematic murder of my people. Today, you answer for those crimes. The decision was made for galactic peace, Chancellor Vecthara protested. Humans were expanding too rapidly. Something had to be done. Admiral Kim studied the alien leader with cold eyes. Something had to be done. But not genocide. You could have negotiated limits. You could have established quotas. You could have worked with us to find a solution that didn't require murder. Humans would not have accepted limits on their expansion. You never tried. You went straight to elimination because it was easier than diplomacy. The trial of the coalition leaders was broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time, the full evidence of what had been done to humanity was presented openly. The cold bureaucratic records of genocide were read aloud. The voices of the few human survivors who had escaped the initial attacks were heard. Many coalition citizens were horrified to learn what had been done in their name. Protests broke out on dozens of worlds, demanding justice for the crimes against humanity. "We didn't know," was the common cry. They told us the humans had been relocated, not murdered. But some coalition species supported their leaders. They argued that humans had indeed been dangerous, that the elimination had been necessary for peace. Admiral Kim addressed these concerns in a galaxy-wide broadcast. "To those who believe the coalition was right to eliminate us, I offer this proof that you were wrong. We have returned with overwhelming force. We could have destroyed every coalition world in revenge. Instead, we saved your civilians. We provided aid to your refugees. We fought only military targets and government officials. If we were the savage monsters you claimed, your species would already be extinct. Instead, we offer you a choice. Join the new galactic order as equals or continue to support the leaders who committed genocide." The choice was clear to most coalition species. One by one, they abandoned their former leaders and negotiated peace with the human forces. 6 months after Jiwoo's awakening, the war was over. The coalition government had surrendered unconditionally. The leaders responsible for the genocide were in prison awaiting trial. Human forces controlled the major systems, but were already beginning to establish new governments with representation from all species. Dr. Kyle Vorth found Jiwoo in the observation deck of the Harmony's Edge, looking out at the stars of the former coalition space. "What happens now?" the alien scientist asked. "Now we build something better," Jiwoo replied. "A galactic government that doesn't solve problems by murdering entire species. And the coalition leaders? They'll face trial. Those found guilty will spend their lives in prison, but we won't execute them. Humans learned long ago that becoming monsters to fight monsters only creates more monsters." Dr. Kyle Vorth was quiet for a moment. "I helped revive you. Does that make me guilty?" Jiwoo looked at him thoughtfully. "Doctor, you brought me back to life because you were curious about my species. You treated me well, even if you saw me as a specimen. You're not responsible for the crimes of your government. What about my research? I studied the remains of your people. Science isn't evil, Doctor. Knowledge isn't a crime. Use what you learned to help us understand each other better." A year later, the new Galactic Republic was established with its capital on the restored world of New Earth. Representatives from dozens of species worked together to create laws that would prevent another genocide. The human fleets that had emerged from the dark began returning to their hidden bases, but they remained ready. The insurance protocol was still active and would remain so as long as humanity existed. Admiral Kim Dae-hyun became the first president of the Republic, chosen not just by humans but by many of the coalition species who had seen how humans fought and how they showed mercy. Dr. Kyle Vorth was appointed as the head of the new Interspecies Research Council, where his studies of human biology helped other species understand their new neighbors. And Jiwoo? Park Jiwoo returned to what he had always been, an engineer. But now he worked on building ships that would carry mixed crews of humans and aliens to explore the galaxy together. As equals, the frozen human had awakened, and with him, humanity's true nature had been revealed.